And we're live now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this 19th of August 2021 meeting of Te Puna Kōrero, made slightly exceptional by the fact that we're Zooming this time. I will start the meeting with apologies. We have no apologies. Moving to item 2, public forum. We have, if you refer to item 6.1, we have Oliver Boyd from Somerset who will talk to us, speak to us of submission when we get to that shortly. Conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? I'll take it by the indications that there are none. There are no items of extraordinary business, so that moves us to confirmation of minutes of the Te Puna Kōrero meeting of the 5th of August 2021. I'm going to move that as a true and correct record to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder, please? You can either talk to me or raise your hand.
I'll second it. Izzy.
Okay, thank you, Izzy. Does anyone have any alterations or corrections or comments?
Through the chair, could I please also seek your approval to table the updated map for Wenera Drive?
Yes, we're going to. I think that's already been. It's already been done, Ethel. So
Cool,
we
thank
know
you.
that is coming, and we've got that correct. Okay.
Cool, thank you, Chair.
No need to do that. All right, thank you. Okay, on that basis, I'll now move the confirmation of those minutes as a true and correct record. All those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I take it that yes for everyone. I see that. Those against, no. Carried. Thank you very much. That now moves us to the reports. And the first report is 6.1, which was the hearing and deliberations report for the proposed 2021 Development Contributions Policy. I'm now going to move that report. And do I have a seconder, please? Do I have a seconder? Yep, thank you, Mike. Councillor Duncan. So I'm now going to invite Oliver Boyd from Somerset to speak to Somerset's submission. Now, Oliver, are you there? You've got 5 minutes to present.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Oliver. Thank you very much.
Great. Kia ora, good morning, councillors. I hope the level 4 change hasn't been too disruptive for you guys. By way of introduction, I'm Oliver Boyd. I'm the National Development Manager at Somerset, and I have operational oversight of all of the new land acquisitions, design development through to our construction documentation stage. Unfortunately, Aaron Smale, our GM Development, wasn't available to speak today, so you have me. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to our submission. With your approval, I'll take the submission as read and just summarise the key themes and then take any questions you guys might have on our submission after that. So I'll jump into it. Really, Somerset's New Zealand's second largest developer and operator of retirement villages. We're one of New Zealand's biggest home builders as well. I think we were 6th at the end of last year. We develop and operate comprehensive care retirement villages that provide a full continuum of care on site from your independent right the way through to secure dementia for those residents living with dementia. The average age of residents entering our villages is 81 years old, so we cater for an older demographic. And in fact, once the village is fully constructed, that average age across the village is more like 85. So certainly that older end of the spectrum. Some of you may be familiar with our Tawa village or our Kinaparu village, which is currently under construction. We've certainly got a few villages around the country. I think we're up to 31 operational and 5 to 10 construction sites at the moment, so busy across the country. I think it's a well-known fact that we've got a demographic change coming. We're expecting New Zealand to to have a larger, both a larger number as an absolute number of over 75-year-olds, but also a change within the demographic proportions to a higher percentage of people over 75. And our submissions put some statistics there for you. So getting into the policy, because our villages cater for an older demographic, we don't think the development contributions policy that's been proposed adequately gives enough consideration to that lower demand profile. And that demand profile is really created by both the age of our resident. They're not as active as a 65-year-old or a 55-year-old. But also we provide a number of amenities on site, and all of our new villages, we've got a pool, we've got gym, restaurant. It's a resort sort of lifestyle within the village. So we don't put as much demand, or our residents rather don't put as much demand on council infrastructure, council reserves, libraries, etc. So our average occupancy across our units is 1.3 residents per unit. That's against the DC's policy, assumes an average household has 2.7 residents per dwelling, so it's less than half. But yet the policy talks about floor areas of less than 60 square metres being assessed at 0.7 of a HUI. So that it should be 0.5 as a starting block, and most policies across the country are at 0.5 or less. And I think most of our retirement units, the independent units, are over 100 square metres. We like to, build more 2 and 3 bedroom villas or retirement village units, and so the policy doesn't reflect, it doesn't adequately reflect that lower demand profile just because of population. And then you add the amenities that we provide on site, and that further reduces that demand on infrastructure. So I won't dive too deep into the policy. Our submission's pretty clear on those, and the reasons that we think it doesn't adequately provide the assessment of our our demand profile. And I think we've put in our submission reasons for that, and why what we would like the policy to reflect. So we've got some HUI demand factors, which is the fairest way to assess a village, is really what is the true demand. At resource consent, we've submitted infrastructure reports, traffic reports, etc. So all of the information required to make that assessment is in that application. And then we've just made comment about the timing of the assessment. We build these villages in stages. We submit our resource consent, and then as several years it takes to build. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the Kōrero site. It takes years to build these villages. We build them as quickly as we can because the demand's there. But the reality is, we've got resource consent when we should be assessed, and then the actual demand doesn't come online until really building consent code of compliance, when our residents are about to move in and start flushing toilets and whatnot. So we've just talked about the timing and what we see as the fair and reasonable position on those. So that's the crux of our submission. Hopefully I've stayed in time, and I'm happy to answer any questions the councillors may have.
Thank you very much, Oliver. That's good. I just wonder whether, before I open it up for councillors, whether Julia, you'd like to comment on the submission in any way, and particularly on what Oliver has said.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we have taken into consideration in the report the comments that Somerset have made in the submission, and looked at the occupancy rate that they've put forward of 1.3 being their average, and looked at that in terms of what our average household is currently, looking at the LTP, which is 2.84 currently. So yeah, we have taken that into consideration in our deliberations report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, I'm now going to open it up. Do we have any questions of either Julia or Oliver?
Yeah.
Yes, Ewan. Councillor Morrell.
How does that flow on to the costs for residents, etc., and just the cost of getting into these homes, and the ongoing fees that they pay? Is there any compensation there, or for lower contributions?
I can probably give you a general answer to that. So the construction costs, I guess, set the baseline for what we would sell a unit for. We tend to link our pricing to the residential market, and we price below what an average house would cost, so that our residents are able to move into the village but still have some capital available if that's their only asset. So there is a direct cost, and that goes into the mix. If we've got to pay higher DCs, then we're starting from a higher minimum, and we see a pretty big range. It might be the lowest in New Zealand might be sort of $10,000 a unit. Some councils who I guess are behind in terms of their investment in infrastructure, more like $30,000 or $40,000 per unit. So it does have a direct effect on where we can price the units from. So they become less affordable if we've got a high construction cost. I think that's probably looking at it in a simple way.
Thanks, Oliver. Does that answer your question, Councillor Morrell?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? You can either speak up or raise your hand, so I know. Any other questions? No. Silence. Well, you'll see, councillors, what the recommendations are. They're pretty clear.
Jeff's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see you, Jeff. You should just speak up if I.
There was a virtual hand up.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Okay.
Could Mr. Chair, do you mind if I speak now?
No, go for it.
Thanks. I do have questions. The first one is, can officers confirm whether they've ever considered the possibility of remission of DCs for charitable trusts or Māori land trusts, whānau or pūtea trusts?
I'll ask Julia or the PE.
We have been asked for remission on housing land. At the moment, we will remit for Māori land, but not for freehold land. And that's because we couldn't differentiate really between different sorts of freehold land. So if it's held as Māori land, you can get a remission. But if it's held freehold, it's not available.
Follow-up question. Can I confirm then, if a charitable trust that wanted to focus on social housing or community housing approached the council with a request to remit on DCs, would the council entertain that conversation? I'm talking about Māori trusts, I'm talking about charitable trusts.
No, it's the same issue. Houses are still being built. They still have the same impost on the infrastructure that this goes to. So no, we don't consider it.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Jeff?
No, I only have comments, but I'll wait for the opportunity to do so.
Does anyone else wish to make a point before Jeff comments further?
The more free lunches we give, the more costs get thrown to other parties.
Yeah, noted, Councillor Morrell. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Chair, were these all questions that were relating to Oliver or to the report as well?
No, this is relating to either. So you can either make comments on the report or ask questions of Oliver. Right. He'll be listening, so he can understand what's happening as well. You want to ask a question?
No, that's fine. I think Councillor Morrell asked what I was concerned with. Thanks.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to ask a question either of Oliver or of officers? No, Jeff, I'll give you one last chance to you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate you allowing me to come back in on this. My concern is just that obviously the DC policy has variations because of the nature of the types of dwellings that are being constructed in the city. And we've received two submissions on this. And the general principle is that we're trying to be fair and balanced about this. But I also would point out to my council colleagues that why would anybody want to develop social or community housing in Porirua if we are, as a council, not thinking about how we can incentivize that kind of work? Because this is one place that we could do it. New Plymouth and Manawatu district councils have some sort of measures in place around this with regards to DCs. We've chosen not to. And again, this isn't isolated. It's in a broader context of social community housing and the role that the council plays in that. LTP, we just agreed to sell off Moana Court flats. And here we haven't really looked at this as a particular area. Maybe we do in the future, but it just feels like, for me, on a personal level, like we're just wiping our hands of this. So, kia ora.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Those points are noted, and perhaps we can come back to that at some stage in the future if there's any further development. But at this stage, what we're doing is going to vote now on the report that we have in front of us with the recommendations. So I'll now put the report. All those in favour? Aye. Those against?
Are we voting on option 3, Ross?
No, we're voting. Yeah, we're voting on the recommendations. 1, as I understand it, we're voting on the recommendations of the report, that we received the report, the oral submission, and agree to adopt the contributions policy with those changes, and 4, adopt to provide some additional reserve project, etc. Number 4 and number 5. Okay? That's what we're voting on. Understand?
I'm in favour.
Okay. All right. All those in favour, I'm taking it that we're in favour. Those against? There are no against. Carried. Thank you very much for coming along, Oliver.
Thanks, councillors. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
All right, let's move on to item 6.2, which is Transmission Gully Link Road speed limits. So this is the hearings and the deliberations. So I'll now move that report to get
seconded. Councillor Hayward.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Hayward, for the seconding. You'll just excuse me for a moment. Right, I'll now open it up for discussion. Andrew is here to answer any questions if we have any. Do you want, councillors, any clarifications, or you want to make any comments? Any councillors? I see you're still there, Jeff. Do you want to make a comment, or you have a question? No. Okay. Any other councillors? So I take it that we've all read the report. It's pretty clear around those speed limits, what they are or what they will be and what we're deciding on. If there are no councillors wishing to talk.
Actually, Ross.
Yes. Councillor.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I just had a comment. I mean, at first I thought of that why not make the whole 350 to save the confusion? But then I kind of, as I read along, you know, the 60 kind of relates to that general area. I'm just kind of wondering if there is if there's any further comments to that. I mean, why we went to 60, other than it's similar to the roadings around that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Councillor Sayuli. Perhaps, Andrew, if you're there, you can comment on that. This is it's something that has been questioned, but I mean, I think I'll let Andrew comment.
Morning, everyone. I'd like to clarify the question. So there are 2 link roads and they're proposed to be 50 k's an hour, and there's one new local road at Lanes Flat proposed to be 60 kilometres an hour. What was the question about the 60 k an hour at Lanes Flat?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Thanks. So what I understand from Waka Kotahi is that the road design for that has been designed for a 60 kilometre an hour environment, and it's quite consistent with the other rural roads along State Highway 58. So Belmont Road is 60 k's an hour, as is Flighties Road. So it's been consistent with that environment, but also for the design speed of that road. Hopefully that answers your question, but happy to discuss it further.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Sayuli, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Councillor Sayuli, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. But I thought Flighties Road was 80 and 80.
No, it's 60. Been reduced. We did that a couple of years ago, as I understand it. That's correct, Andrew?
Yes, that's correct. I think it was 2018, as was Paikakariki Hill Road, and yes.
Yeah. Okay, so
Councillor Sayuli has a couple of tickets there.
Say that again.
No, don't worry.
Okay, hasn't driven the road lately. Okay, so we have this motion on the table. I think it's pretty clear what it is that, and it's been out for review. People have made some comments, similar comments around 50, 60, etc. But I'm now going to put the recommendation. All those in favour, please note. All right. Are there any against? All right. No, everyone's in favour. I declare the motion carried. Thank you, councillors. So that moves us now on to item 3, which is Porirua Council traffic bylaws. I'm now going to move that report to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Yeah, Councillor Morell, thank you very much. Okay, you'll note the correction that Athol raised at the beginning of the meeting to attachment 9, which was Wynyera Drive. I assume that we've all seen this, which was a slight change. This takes a number of, it's got a number of detailed things in it. Do councillors, rather than ask Athol to go through it all, do councillors have any questions with regard to this particular report of staff?
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's actually relatively minor. I guess on point 43, where have the EV stations been moved to?
Athol, can you answer that?
Yes, through the chair. I would like to say that they've been moved to Pack and Save.
Yeah. So Jeff, obviously,
I know the ones. Yep.
Yeah.
Can I just point one comment, which is quickly to thank the team, especially around the Kinepuru Drive work, who have done several rounds of public feedback and engagement, and please keep it up.
Noted. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of work done in that area, and people have been providing feedback along the way. So are there any other questions from councillors regarding these amendments and additions?
Yeah, Ross.
Duncan.
Yeah, look, I sent a message in earlier asking why, or had Whitireia been contacted about the parking on Wynyera Drive, because the students there at Whitireia use that area a lot for parking, and it seems to me 90 minutes is not going to be adequate for them. And I wonder why, or why we haven't contacted Whitireia about that.
Yep, good question. Athol, can you answer that, please?
Yes, Chair Leggett. So we consulted 7 parties in total, and they were identified because they were directly adjacent to where the change was proposed, and Whitireia is not directly adjacent. So yeah, that's why. Also, there is a significant amount of unrestricted parking all along Wenera Drive and on other adjacent streets. So they will still be available for public and for use by Whitireia students.
Thank you. So just adding to Councillor Duncan's question, so the purpose of this change was to do what?
To increase turnover along that short section of road.
So that's particularly related to the businesses that are around there, as opposed to parking for the Polytech.
Correct. And it's also in close proximity to the CBD.
Right. Councillor Duncan, do you have any further question?
Yeah, look, most of those businesses that you've contacted are part of the mega centre, and it already has extensive parking available to shoppers there. And I'd say that the only one that isn't is the mini golf centre there. So those businesses are already catered for.
Yes, Athol, do you want to respond to that? Or, I mean, it's a statement, but...
Yeah, yes, I agree, Councillor Duncan. And in fact, the mini golf were the parties that complained about this, and they are the most affected. And I think, yeah, that's the fact. But like you say, those parking spaces existing there are available to all public, and the main aim of the bylaw change was to increase turnover in such close proximity to CBD.
Right.
Can I say something, Ross? Because I think those
yes, you can.
The bicycle cafe as well, because now they've moved. They had a lot of trouble with parking down in the other centre.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baker. That's a good observation to make as well. Is there anyone else that wants to make any comment on either this or the whole paper, all the recommendations? Speak now or no? Okay, thank you, everybody. So I'm now going to put the recommendations to the vote. All those in favour? Ayes?
Aye.
Yep, I take it. Ayes. Those against? No one. Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Athol. So that now moves us to item 6.4, which is the finance report of the 30th of June. I'm going to move that report to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Ford, thank you very much. I'm just pulling this up on my screen as well. So basically, this report is in front of us to give to get us to agree to increased carryovers and look at some other items there as well. So this will be coming back to us and going to the Audit and Risk Committee with the end of the year information in it. But I'll just ask Matt if he wishes to make any comments around, not to go through the whole paper, but just to make any comments around the key issues. Oh, sorry, Graham. Wrong item. Graham Grieve, can you make some comments?
Through you, Chair. You can hear me?
Thanks. Yes, I can. We can hear you.
Yes, this is just based on the management accounts. So it doesn't include the year-end items, which we'll bring through to the audit and risk. And we will do a reconciliation to audit and risk between the management accounts and the full accounts for the year end. So the main purpose of this is just to give an update to council that in terms of the management accounts, council did better than budget by $2.6 million, which is on para 8. And the CapEx came in a wee bit lower than what we had forecast, which is why we're asking for the additional carryovers.
Yeah,
that's the main points.
Understood, Graham. Do councillors have any specific questions that they'd like to ask Graham?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yep, certainly. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I have 3 questions. Page 155, 150 on diligent. Point G3, can officers provide a date or some idea when councils are going to receive a briefing on the CD waste project and the MFE funding approval?
That's the first question. Graham, do you? Or...
I'll have to investigate that. Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll come back to us on that one. We'll come back.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
Here, so he would be.
Sorry, Wendy.
No, sorry.
What was that?
We'll have to get back to you, Ross.
Yeah.
Andrew's the only one who would know, and he's not on the call today.
Fine. Thank you. Second question.
Yeah, Pata Porirua, the stimulus funding, is that funding ring-fenced from any reprioritisation work that Wellington Water may bring to the council after the Parramatta VHCA hardware failure earlier this year?
My understanding is no, it's not ring-fenced. They do have some other options because it does have to be spent quickly. It has to be spent by the end of March next year. So that's probably the primary reprioritisation criteria that they are using, but they will come back to us shortly.
Okay. Mr. Chair, question 3, page 176, 171 on diligent, the jobs and skills hub. Can officers give some commentary on what role the council is playing and trying to get from Kāinga Order a firm time frame around resolving the contract negotiations? And perhaps as a second part to that, how are we working with MSD and Kāinga Order right now to ensure that those jobs that are currently underway, we are actually encouraging rangatahi to who are here in Porirua to be able to go into those jobs right now?
Once again, we're going to have to come back to you on the detail of that. I don't have anyone on the call who can answer that.
Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
Question?
Thanks for those, Chris. Yes, Councillor Morrell.
Just going to page 175 on major projects, the adventure, well, we'll talk about the Kena Peru. Just a couple of days ago, I was given a video of the last major flood event, and I am somewhat surprised at what I saw. And I just wonder, we had one a few weeks ago, and that dome thing at the bottom of the big of the retirement village that's on there was spouting water. And last week it was spouting, well, a couple of weeks ago it was spouting water big time again, and it was moving on down, and the businesses in that part of the world are, you know, getting seriously affected. I just wonder, can we be assured that what work is being done is going to fix this problem? Because this is, you know, these are quite, I was going to bring the videos to council this morning if we'd have been there, but obviously not. But it's quite astounding of the amount of water that's coming out of that unit and flowing down into Kena Peru Drive. So, you know, I just need to be assured that work is going to fix that problem or mitigate it.
Once again, I'm going to have to come back to you on that. I would point out it's a very low part of the city, and assurances around flooding protection for very low parts of the city are going to be difficult. But the specific question around what you're talking about, Councillor Morrell, I'll have to come back to you on that.
I'll send you the video.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, reasonable question, Ewan. Okay, are there any other questions from other councillors? So that being the case, I'm now going to put the motion, the recommendations. We know what we're recommending. All those in favour? Raise your hands. Yep. And those against? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for that. That now moves us to item 6.5, which is reserve classifications. And yeah, this is you, Matt. I am going to move the report to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Councillor Hayward.
Yeah, Councillor Hayward, seconded. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to ask, I'm taking it that you've read the paper, but I'll just ask Matt to very briefly give us the highlights of this, because there's lots of things in there. So Matt, can you do that, please?
Yeah, so the report relates to the classification of land under the Reserves Act for land that came into council ownership in the 2020-2021 financial year. The bulk of it has come to us through subdivision. There is a section of land at Kenepuru Drive, I believe that's flagged in attachment 1, that was acquired through a land exchange with Waka Kotahi as part of Transmission Gully. And council, that was previously authorised by a council resolution in November 2017.
Okay.
I think that sort of covers the synopsis.
Yeah.
Other
than that, I think the maps are pretty clear about what it is we're doing here. I just take it this is a standard practice for council to do. Every year we do this annually, or just when and as necessary.
It's kind of an evolving area of practice. I think my predecessor put it in basically going up every year. So we'll usually acquire a handful of parcels every year, and it's just to prevent us from losing track of the reserve estate as it comes into council hands.
Yeah, understood. Councillors, are there any questions that any of you have of Matt on this? No? Pretty straightforward, I think. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, I'm taking that as yes. Those against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. So that moves us to our last item this morning, which is the representation review, which I'm just getting this up on my screen. Excuse me for a second. Thank you. So I'm now going to move this is an initial proposal. I'm now going to move this to get it on the table. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Trillin, thank you very much. I'll now open the item for discussion. I think we've had, I've got you, Councillor Trillin, and let's let councillors talk first, because I think it's pretty clear we've discussed this a number of times. So, Councillor Trillin, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think, first of all, for context, I think a lot of us would prefer if this was a decision that was able to be made independently from council, maybe through the Electoral Commission. But it is what it is. We do have to make a decision. And to my mind, the recommended option does give us the best available balance of maintaining those communities of interest alongside effective and fair representation. So I think this probably strikes the best balance of what we have available. I also wanted to make the comment that I'm glad that we are moving away from direction-based names and instead using the harbour arms as names for the general wards, and in particular our city's original name in Porirua for the proposed Māori ward. So I'll be supporting the recommended option, and I also just wanted to thank officers for working through the various possibilities and finding some workable solutions to what is a genuinely very difficult problem. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Tron, for those points. Do any other councillors wish to comment that would add to Councillor Trillin's comments that he's already made?
Right.
No? Yes, Councillor Sauli.
Thank you. Hey, just on point 61, where it says this option is not in line with the community feedback received in the preliminary engagement period, which felt that 10 general councillors. I thought during one of our workshops that question wasn't asked. That we didn't give because I remember asking that question about what the feedback, whether we asked to have 10 plus the Māori, and I thought the indication we got when I asked the question was that it wasn't asked. Am I right or wrong?
I'll ask Jack to answer that.
Yep. Kia ora koutou, Mayor Baker and councillors, through you, Mr. Chair. So we asked a question about how many councillors the public thought was the right amount, and we got pretty good feedback that the current number we had was about right, and that was explained in the booklet as being 10 total councillors plus the mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a sub, please.
Yep.
Yeah, I think during the workshop I mentioned that that the public or the people that you consulted with weren't given the option to say 10 plus 1, but you only just said to them only 10 in total. So that's with that comment there, that 61 is saying that the general feedback was to say, you know, that they wanted 10. I'm not sure whether that's accurate.
Jack, do you wish to respond to that? I mean, I think that what he was asking was, were they satisfied with the current number of councillors? And that's why we got to where we've got to. Is that correct, Jack?
Yeah, so based on the previous preamble on the booklet, it was posed as a question around what is the total amount, and we set out the fact that we've currently got 10. Whether or not that was clear enough, yeah, is.
Sorry, just for me, I think it was clear, but I don't think it was clear that they knew that it was going to be 9 plus 1 and not 10 plus 1.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we can also get feedback on this through the consultation period as well. The consultation document we're putting out is probably a bit clearer about that. It very clearly spells out how many wards and how many councillors in total as well.
Yeah, we're not finalising this yet, so there's opportunity for that to happen. Yep.
Thanks, Jack.
Is that okay, Councillor Sauli? Noted?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think he did make it quite clear in that workshop.
Sorry, Councillor Morrell. Sorry.
All good.
I was going to make a comment that when we changed from 14 or whatever it was about a few years ago, there was a huge number that didn't want to increase the number, and certainly we don't want to be looking for any more. My view.
Okay. So, Councillor Ford, did you wish to make a comment?
No. I was just supporting what Fafu had said. He did make it clear during the workshop that it might not have been clear when we indicated to the people that the impact of having a Māori seat included would then result in one less.
Yeah, noted. Does anyone else wish to make a comment?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair, and thank you to staff and officers for preparing this document. Councillor Trillin's comments probably align very closely with my own. It's like he's almost read my notes. But there is one thing that was different that I think just needs to be noted. Furthermore, I would think that it's important that because as we have this issue that as elected representatives, we have to do our best to make sure that we are not looking like we are, by our own presence, shifting the goalposts, have to urge that officers be agile in engaging and interacting with the public during this consultation period, so that it is a fair and frank period for feedback from the general public. And because, as Councillor Trin has said, and I've said in the previous workshops, we must not look like we're trying to gerrymander and work to the guidelines that have been set by the Local Government Commission. And yeah, in an ideal world, we would not be the people who would have this role put upon us. They don't at central government elections. They have a representation commission to do this, where the bureaucrats actually outnumber the politicians. Kia ora.
Fair enough. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. I mean, I think we did canvass this pretty comprehensively, and this is the way it's got to go. We've tried to be as fair as possible, and we're still talking to people and the opportunity to talk to people about this. So, are there any other comments or questions that we wish to have? Again, I reiterate, thank you very much to officers for the work put in here. I think there are some a reasonable way forward for people to look at. So with that, I'm now going to put the proposal. All those in favour? All right, take it as aye. Those against? Very good. Carried. So that now brings us to the end of the meeting, which I will declare closed at 9:17.